Hi, I'm Mary Yule, and this is Energy Matters. Today I'm really happy to say I have Terry Clark, a Keene City Councilor and Treasurer, to talk about gas in the city of Keene. Hi, Terry.
Hi, how you doing, Mary?
And I just wanted to say that I introduced you as a city councilor and as a treasurer, but you're not here today to speak in your professional position.
No, I can't do that. The city and county rules really don't allow, like a city councilor to represent the council in court suits and such like that. So, in order for me to go forward, I needed to do it as a private citizen.
And what we're really going to be talking today is about gas pipelines, right?
Well, one in particular, I suppose, yes.
And I think what you need to do is help me and help the public understand the pipelines that are coming into Keene and kind of the overall picture of how you see what's happening with Liberty, with the propane, with the liquid natural gas. And maybe you can put it into kind of a short summary so we kind of understand where all of this litigation and kind of what they're thinking about or what we think they're planning for the city of Keene.
Yeah, well, in short, Liberty Utilities is the gas company that pipes gas, air propane to homes, around 1,250 homes in Keene. And that's an offshoot of a company, a very, very old company. It used to be coal tar that they would gasify back in the like 1910, 1920 era.
And it's part of a big Canadian company now, is
well,
that
right
right?
now, yes. In 2012, a global subsidiary, Algonquin Power. It's a regulated utility conglomerate that has interests all over the country and in Canada. They bought what was then Energy North Natural Gas and Granite State Gas,
Okay.
which was part of another company called National Grid. So Liberty is sort of a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary. Algonquin bought up pretty much all of the gas systems in the state of New Hampshire. They have one in Berlin, one in Keene, and most of it goes along the Merrimack River up from Nashua, Concord, up that way.
Okay.
But anyway, in 2012, they bought essentially about 130,000 customers for gas and electric. And in, I think it was in 2015, January 2015, they bought what we knew for years as Keene Gas or New Hampshire Gas. That has been, like I said, been around here since the turn of the last century. They almost immediately talked about plans of converting the air propane system that we have right now into a liquid natural gas system. And they wanted to expand the service from the 1,250 customers they have now. They wanted to pretty much more than triple it. In scientific terms, they wanted to go from 130 decatherms per year to 500 decatherms per year.
So they wanted to expand maybe the residents and businesses in the city of Keene, so more of them that would be using gas.
Yeah, there's been over the last 10 years or so, there's been this push to go towards natural gas or frack gas, because the fracking process really expanded over the last 10 or 15 years and made extracting gas from the ground much cheaper. But of course, we know that there are a lot of external costs that they're not, pollution and such that weren't added into that. But that's part of a movement to bring natural gas into New England and try to fuel expanded industry and businesses to make economic development a little better than it is right now.
And that's really why they wanted, that's a goal to get rid of that propane then, because that's kind of not maybe a good money-making fuel right now. Am I right to think that, or?
Well, natural gas is actually made up of methane, propane, ethane, several other gases. Propane is extracted from natural gas.
So it's more expensive?
It becomes more expensive, but it's a purer form of a gas that actually isn't as damaging to the atmosphere because it doesn't have the methane in it. Methane is the real problem with this whole natural gas situation, because natural gas it acts in such a way that there's like I think 65% more damage to the ozone and to the atmosphere by putting natural gas into the air than by burning coal.
So that leaks then become very, very important. And if you're talking about pipelines and moving this gas around, or you're talking about shipping it from one place to another, then every time you have a connection, you might have more leaks, and that could be bad.
Yes, the amount of gas that leaks out of a system, the Public Utilities Commission has put Liberty's, what do they call it? Well, I can't remember. It's the difference between the gas that they start with and the gas that the customer actually buys. Is around 2.8% of the gas in Keene under the current system leaks somewhere.
Yeah, we're not sure where.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So now to try to get back to that story. So Liberty comes in, they purchase this propane system.
The propane system.
Right? And they start requesting to turn it over into this natural gas, most likely because they can get this cheaper frac gas, and they want to benefit from this cheaper gas system, and they want to expand into more of Keene.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
yeah, they started that by going to the Public Utilities Commission and asking them for an expansion and a conversion. The troubling thing about that is that it wasn't done with any public hearings or anything. Utility law is kind of different than most other law. Back in the bad old days in the 1880s and 1890s, when the robber barons and such started, they really took control of Congress once petroleum was discovered and really put into use. They really took control, and the Congress enacted laws that were pretty proprietary as far as making utilities hands off. Whatever they wanted, they were going to get. And then later on, towards the war years in World War I and World War II, it became even worse because they started describing utilities as a national emergency. So they started putting in laws where utilities didn't really have to disclose a lot of things. They still were under regulatory processes for safety and such like that, but pretty much whatever they wanted to do, they got. So Liberty pretty much operates under the old elephant under the tent kind of a system.
So so they went to the Public Utility Commission in the state of New Hampshire, right? So there is this commission that the utilities have to go to and get approval, right?
Right. The Public Utilities Commission pretty much oversees all of the utilities to make sure that the customers are getting the best bang for the buck. They don't go into environmental issues. They won't rule on any of that, but they'll talk about what what is good for the consumer, whether it's cheaper than this or cheaper than that.
Okay, so they're really, really looking at the bottom line, is it
Right.
cheaper? So in that sense, when Liberty came in and said, hey, we can bring in this frack gas, then maybe that didn't sound so bad.
Oh, no, as a matter of fact, it sounded very inviting. Right here in Keene, the mayor and city officials really looked forward to it because they were, looking towards building an economic development plan that would bring, industry into town. Sort of forgetting that, what Bruce Springsteen said, about the smokestack industries. These jobs are going, boys, and they ain't coming back. It's sort of a pipe dream, but it was welcomed.
No pun intended.
No pun intended, well, actually. But the request before the PUC went without any notices. Most of the time when the public officials want to do something, they have to notice a meeting so that the public has an opportunity to come in and listen to it and to speak their views and et cetera like that. But none of that pertains to public utilities hearings automatically. So what happened is me and a few other people discovered this, and we filed a petition to intervene with the Public Utilities Commission so that we could actually gather evidence, call witnesses, and have a say or another opinion for the PUC to consider.
So you did this when Liberty said, hey, we'd like to convert to natural gas and we'd like to triple the size of our business in Keene.
Right. Initially, I thought it was, not the thing for us to do, and it was very bad timing because at the time here in the city of Keene, we're talking about setting new policies so that we can decarbonize, if you wish, by 2050 and get rid of all of these fossil fuels and to produce all of our electricity by renewable sources, sustainable sources by 2030, and then to add transportation and thermal heating by 2050. And if you were to take and invest millions of dollars into an antiquated old industry like fossil fuel gas, we're talking, by the time it gets done, we're talking 50, 60, 70 years of use that's going to delay any action that we might have to go sustainable.
And I think that's really the issue. I think a lot of people have heard this idea that gas is a bridge gas, but really now with climate action and what's happening with the climate, if you don't have the pipelines in place, if you don't have all of the infrastructure required in place, that takes a long time to build. That's not an overnight quick fix.
Well, it not only takes a long time to build, it takes a long time to pay for. And you remember because, earlier I discussed the bad old days and some of the laws that they enacted. When a utility invests in infrastructure, it's not like a mom and pop business where if you want to build a business, you invest your money, and if customers come, well, you make a profit. If customers don't come, well, you lose your money. Well, utilities don't operate that way. If it doesn't matter if they make any money, the customers are going to pay for it in the end through what they call stranded costs.
So if Liberty had come in and said, hey, we want to build this, we want to triple our business, and they went in and they started building all the infrastructure, but the people in Keene said, well, we want really renewable sources and we're not liking this idea of gas, which many people in Keene feel that way, and they didn't get triple the number, then the customers that were using that gas, that were okay with it and have been using it, they would have seen their gas prices rise.
They would spike. They would spike. Much like what happened to electricity when the Seabrook station was put online. It cost so much to build that nuclear power plant that it actually bankrupted service company in New Hampshire. They had to file, and they eventually ended up selling their operation to Eversource. And it's part of the reason that electricity is so incredibly expensive here in New Hampshire. It's not so much the generation of the electricity, it's the transportation costs and the stranded costs that are really adding to the bill, you know. So, you know, but this,
yeah, but
this,
we're getting way
this
off.
this thing about bridge fuel. I think if I hear the term bridge fuel again, I'm going to get ill. We've been talking about bridge fuel for 50 years, and that's just a catchphrase that the fossil fuel industry uses in order to delay.
I think you're right. I think it started in the 70s. So
I
you're
think
right.
that I think
now.
these people will. They still have an inventory of fossil fuels that they own, and they're going to go kicking and screaming into the night before they will say, no, we're not going to use all of it. If it's there, we're going to use it, and we're going to force it upon you no matter what. And, you know, that's simply put, that's what's happening here.
So okay, you are passionate about this, and you went to the public utility as a Keene resident and said, I don't like this idea. I want another hearing. What
Yes.
exactly did you do?
Yes, they gave me intervener status because I'm a resident of Keene and in the system. So I have standing. You know, in legal terms, you can't just go into a case if you don't have skin in the game.
Yeah, like I live in Spotsford, and even though
Right.
I don't like
Right.
this, I couldn't go and say something
Right.
about Keene because I don't live there.
Right.
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 Okay.
So we went to the Public Utilities Commission and got rehearing. We're still hearing that first case about expansion. That has not been decided yet. In between this whole thing, Liberty did another little under the radar thing.
Oh, okay. So the expansion still hasn't been heard. And when did that start?
Well, it is being heard, but it's not over yet. There's still
And
further
ho-
hearings.
Oh, okay. And
who-
how long has that process been going on?
Since June of 2018, since just last June. It's
Oh,
not
since
too-
last June. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's coming up on a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was actually before then, but that's when I interceded and sort of stopped the clock, and they had to start over.
Okay.
See, another thing that happened is the Liberty wanted to make a deal with Monadnock Marketplace, where Home Depot is, to provide that whole plaza with natural gas. But they needed to have a compression station to do it. They tried to do it in that parking lot, in the back of the parking lot there, but that didn't work out. So they asked, they saw some property across the road over on Production Avenue by the Subaru garage, and
Oh, by the Subaru dealership?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they purchased the land at the very end of Production Avenue, and they asked the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, for a waiver because most of that industrial park is actually in a wet zone.
So it's a wetland.
It's a wetland. But the thing that they were asking for, and which they were granted, was to build on top of the road. So when they built the road, back in the days when wetlands didn't really matter as much to people who were developing property, they raised the road up above the wetlands. So Liberty asked for permission to put a temporary compressor on top of the road. But in order for them to do that, the city of Keene would have had to abandon that part of the road and let it revert back to them, the owner, so that they could put their system there.
Oh, okay, so they had to go to the zoning board because they're asking for that road.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the problem is when you go before the zoning board, they don't have to tell them why they want the land. They don't have to tell them the end use. And the ZBA just has some rules to follow. You know, you have to, if you hit all of these points, then yes, we have to, by law, allow you. And the same thing when it went to the city council for a road closure. I mean, those sort of things, road closures, they're sort of routine as a way of the city council doing business. So people don't pay much attention to them. So what happened is we had a site visit, and 6 councilors didn't come to the site visit. And there's a council rule that says if you don't come to the site visit, then you can't vote on the issue, at hand. So at the site visit, they of course dodged all of the questions about what it is that they wanted to do there. They didn't tell us anything about what they really wanted to do there because they didn't have to. So I sort of figured by looking at the only information that I had garnered from my previous intervention that, okay, this is what these people are going to be doing here. They want to use this as a jump-off to expand natural gas in the city of Keene. So I went to my fellow councilors, the ones who could vote, and we nearly had it denied, the road closure denied. It was a 5-4 vote. But the troubling thing there is it was under the radar. Not even the councilors knew what was going on. And 6 of the councilors didn't even think it was important enough to go and to see the site visit. That's how under the radar this thing is.
And it's still that way, right? I mean, at the PUC it's this way. When they go before the zoning board, it's this way. And so I guess there's one other thing. There's one other peg, and we have about 5 minutes to talk about it because we're running out of time.
That's what happened again. Nancy Gillard, who, God bless her, she just happened to be perusing the Public Utility Commission's online dockets and discovered that that Liberty had asked the PUC to drill a pipeline underneath the Ashuelot River, and they wanted to do it under a legal term called Order Nisi, which means they didn't have to have any public hearings or anything like that. And the Public Utilities Commission actually set a date for their hearing, and we're going to go forward with it without any public hearings. But as soon as Nancy called someone else, and someone else called me, and I intervened. And so we brought it before the Public Utilities Commission, and I argued that number one, it wasn't needed as Liberty said that they needed it for redundancy for the 107 gas customers that they have on the other side of West Street. When I saw it clearly when I remember seeing the maps of their conversion plans, that it's a direct line going into the malls. This is what they want. They just want to connect the system to the malls.
So you saw it as being a larger picture for their desire to expand the liquid natural gas into Keene.
That's right. That's right. Well, fortunately, they had chosen a route that goes underneath the city park and on Winchester Street there. And in order to go underneath the park, they actually had to get permission from the city council. Because of the old day laws, a utility can go on the public right-of-way without any, all they have to do is ask the Public Utilities Commission permission to do it. So it went before the city council, and this is the troubling thing. This is very troubling. The Public Utilities Commission order of January of this year said, okay, you can drill underneath the Ashuelot River, but you have to get Keene's permission if you want to do option A. If Keene doesn't give their permission, then you need to present us option B, which would be to go underneath the right-of-way. So you have that permission to do that, but you have to send this information to the city of Keene by January 25th, and then send a notice to the PUC that you have done so.
So at the
February meeting at the Planning, Licenses, and Development Committee of the Keene City Council, they had not sent the city clerk that order, which defined option B, that they didn't have to go underneath the park, that they had another
plan.
Then they had another option that was equally acceptable to the PUC. when they got to the hearing, not only did they not tell us about option B, but they said that option A was the cheapest, safest way to go. When it was brought to their attention that I had brought that order to that committee and that they knew about option B, they just further misled the committee by saying that, well, it's much more expensive to go under the bridge. They were talking about hanging it under the bridge, which was not option B. Option B is drilling under the bridge, which the Public Utilities Commission and the Liberty official who testified at the City Council hearing had already told the Public Utilities Commission that it was not as expensive. I mean, it was the same expense and it was not any more dangerous. So they misled the City Council by withholding information, and it's very troubling that they would do that. It's just another indication that they want to do things under the radar. They don't want the public to know about all of these things.
So I just want to understand this clearly. So the PUC said you can have this pipeline go under the river. You originally wanted it to go under the river in a park.
Right.
And therefore, you're going to have to ask the city of Keene if you can do it under the park.
Right, and I had to inform the PUC that they required city approval because of a codicil that the original landowner had given.
And the original pipeline, because there's actually an original pipeline, and they wanted this second one as kind of backup, is the original reason.
They were saying redundancy, and that the pipeline that exists today goes underneath the West Street Bridge, and that pipeline there services 107, 110 customers over in West Keene.
Yes, and so when they came to testify, they were talking about putting that pipeline by the other pipeline that existed there. I just want to be clear.
No, they wanted to go downriver to the Winchester Street bridge.
Yeah, and so what happened at the end of the testimony where you're saying that they were being evasive and really being untruthful to the Keene City Council?
Well, the committee voted 5-0 to deny their request.
So now they are going to have to go.
They've already withdrawn their request to the full City Council and notified the Public Utilities Commission that they plan to pursue option B, which is to drill a pipeline underneath the right-of-way along the bridge.
Okay. Okay.
For
So
Winchester Street.
So there will be two pipelines coming in.
There'll be one pipeline that will be drilled.
Okay. But there is already an existing one.
There's already, but the pipe hangs underneath the West Street Bridge.
Oh, okay.
It's not drilled. It's not under the river.
Oh,
it's
okay.
under the
the bridge.
It hangs on the bridge.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just want to be clear so everyone can understand.
And part of our objection was that that redundancy was obviously not the reason, because the pipeline underneath the bridge could easily just be duplicated. They don't have to shut down anything. All they have to do is put another one right beside it. Switch the valves. Maybe interrupt service 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there's just so much more we could talk about, but we are out of time. And thank you so much, Terry, for coming and helping, elucidate what's going on here. And I wanted to thank everybody for checking in today. And I hope you come back next week. I'm going to have an exciting guest next week as well. And be safe.